What's up, everyone? It's Q from Retro Q Gaming, and if you remember, over the weekend there was a new final update to the Resident Evil 7 demo. It's the third update. Oh well, it'd be the second update for the demo, essentially bringing it to the third version. It's the final version. Originally, it launched as the beginning hour version. Then the first patch brought it up to the Twilight version, and now we have the Midnight version, which is the final edition of the demo before the game's release in January. Now, because the demo was previously PlayStation exclusive until all of the patches and version updates had actually been officially done, now that they've announced that the Resident Evil 7 demo is going to be coming to Xbox One on December 9th, and that's going to have all the it's already going to launch as the final midnight version of the game. And on top of all that as well, the demo will be coming to PC in the same form. It'll be coming in midnight form on December 19th. Now, the reason why I'm making this video is because of the announcement of the PC release date for the demo, they've actually gone into detail about some of the customizable graphical settings that are going to be included on the demo. They've also made a comment that there will possibly be more options on the actual full game's release, possibly even in the demo's release, but this is all they're saying for the demo now. But real quick, before I get into all that, I just want to go over the system requirements real quick. They're not all fully out there. There is one thing that's missing, but at the same time, it gives you kind of a look into like a general idea of what you're going to need based on the game. So real quick as well, obviously system requirements are, they do change before release and all that, and one of them is unconfirmed. But the official Steam requirements on Resident Evil 7, the full game, minimum requirements for Resident Evil, Windows 7, 8, 8.1, or 10 64-bit required. That's a given these days. Who doesn't have a 64-bit operating system? Intel Core i5 4460 2.7 GHz or AMD FX 6300 or better. Memory 8 GB RAM, and here's the key stuff. Graphics NVIDIA GeForce GTX 760 or AMD Radeon R7 260X with 2 GB video RAM. Obviously, it's the rest of the stuff, DirectX sound card, direct sound compatible sound card, I should say, DirectX 11, that's a given. And then when you look at the recommended spec, I really only want to touch on two things in this one. With the recommended spec, you've got i7 3770 3.4 gigahertz or AMD equivalent or better. So you get the idea. It's going to be an improvement on there because it needs the faster cores. And memory 8 GB RAM, same thing. But here's one thing I wanna point out before we get into the actual specs of the demo itself. Graphics to be announced. 4 GB video RAM. So it seems that they haven't nailed down the exact recommended card that they're shooting for on there. It does say that the hardware specification for all this stuff is targeting 1080p 60 FPS. And remember, recommended settings and recommended cards and hardware generally are not the absolute top end of settings and stuff. They're usually down 1 or 2 notches. But having said all that, now that that's all out of the way and we have a general idea of what's required to run Resident Evil 7, I'm going to go over this is the main reason I'm making the video now, is the actual customizable settings that are going to be included. This is all with the exact details and all too for the Resident Evil 7 Midnight demo on PC. There's apparently going to be possibly more options in the actual demo when it releases, or possibly even more options in the game itself when that releases as well. Because it says they haven't covered everything. I'll get to that at the end of this little part anyway. So, without further ado, here we go. Screen resolution, self-explanatory here, but the game will list arbitrary resolutions supported by your monitor and Windows desktop environment. So real quick, that's probably also going to include, say, things like NVIDIA DSR if you use dynamic super resolution if you've got a beefy card. Refresh rate, adjustable to frequencies supported by your monitor, also supports 144Hz high refresh monitors including NVIDIA G-Sync. That works great for me because I have a 144Hz G-Sync capable monitor. Usually I cap it at 120 because if I know in the case of my particular monitor, if you do bump it up to 144, it kind of dims the brightness and colors a little bit because it technically has to overclock to get past 120. So I usually leave it at 120 unlocked with G-Sync. Display mode, full screen, windowed, and borderless window modes are supported. Personally, I use full screen. I know a lot of people use borderless windowed. I don't understand why. Anyway, field of view, FOV angle can be adjusted here. That's a really good one for the simple reason is not just field of view option is generally good, but a lot of people have been complaining, especially since the release of the Midnight demo or the Midnight patch on the PlayStation, that with the field of view in Resident Evil 7, combat is pretty bad because there is now a weapon, or there's now a gun in the demo, in the Midnight version of the demo. And because of that, combat can feel pretty stifled and pretty bad. One can argue that's what they're going for because you're just a regular dude shitting bricks in a house and, you know, you're panicked, you're worried, you've got no training. So one could argue that that's actually it. We'll see what the field of view is like on its default setting, on its lowest setting, and on its highest setting. We'll see when that comes out anyway. Frame rate supports 30 FPS, 60 FPS, and uncapped variable FPS. Personally, I'll be using variable myself, as I'm sure most people will be, or using 60. VSync on or off, no point explaining that. Rendering method, 2 options available, normal and interlaced. Now, I think the reason for that, the reason why it's going for interlaced, or it gives the option for interlaced, is not because some people still have interlaced TVs, like 1080i TVs or 720i TVs, anything like that. I think the main reason is for the aesthetic it's going for in the actual game, especially when you look at some of the VHS tape settings, sections I should say, not settings. You'll see that a lot of them have scan lines, VHS kind of, whatever you want to call it, focus crawl. I think that's the colloquial name for it. But I think that's why it gives those, to keep that kind of thing together. Resolution scaling controls the game's internal rendering resolution. This is akin to upscaling and downsampling of the final video output. Selectable options range from 0.5 up to 2.0. 1.0 is 100%. It's a 1-1 native output. The higher the number, the better the image quality and more GPU oomph required, while lowering it below 1.0 makes the image softer but also reduces GPU overhead and increases frame rate. So basically, this is a different way to change your resolution. For example, if you're familiar with NVIDIA DSR, or if you're primarily a PlayStation user and you understand the PlayStation Pro super sampling, you can essentially turn the game above your screen's resolution if you have the extra graphical power, and it will squeeze the image down from a higher resolution to display it on your screen. It does require significantly more power, and personally, usually the gains aren't really all that beneficial, but if you've got so much extra power just left over, it's definitely worth turning on. Now, where was I? Texture quality. Option ranges from very low to very high. Higher quality requires additional local video memory. That's just the quality of all the textures of the game. Obviously, the higher the quality textures, as it says, the more video RAM your graphics card is going to actually need. Texture filtering. Option ranges from very low to very high. Internally, this is essentially your trilinear to an easy... I can never pronounce this properly. An azeotropic, I think it's an azeotropic filter that goes all the way up to 16x. 16, obviously bilinear, trilinear, and then it starts going like 2, 4, 6, 8, blah, 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 all the way up to 16. 16x obviously being your best type of filtering. Mesh quality. Option ranges between low to very high. This option also affects level of detail, aka LOD, quality. Now, mesh quality is basically... It's hard to say for this one, for the simple reason is it can vary slightly on game to game. But when you think of the mesh quality, it would be how the actual wireframe underneath the textures is built. Obviously, the higher the quality of the mesh, the more detailed the texture can actually be. Hence why it also affects your level of detail. So that's obviously going to take that into consideration. Anti-aliasing settings. Selectable options include FXAA, TAA, which is temporal anti-aliasing, FXAA, which I'm sure you already know is fast approximate anti-aliasing. Then the third setting is FXAA plus TAA, so it's obviously using FXAA and temporal at the same time. And then SMAA. I can't remember what SMAA is off the top of my head. It's not super sampling, it's not multi-sampling. I don't remember what SAA is off the top of my head. It's not one of the NVIDIA specific technologies, because that's TXAA. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I can't remember that one anyway. Motion blur on or off toggle. Personally, I play with motion blur off, just in basically every game. Some people like it on, some people like it off. It's I don't really feel it adds anything graphically, but some people like it, some people don't. Where was I? Ah yes, effects rendering. Selectable between low, medium, and high. This controls the intensity and density of certain visual effects. So it'll be things like smoke, fire, dust particles in the air, etc., etc. It's going to be that kind of stuff. Depth of field, toggle on or off. I like depth of field. I like to turn it on. Some people prefer to keep the whole whatever you depth of field. Basically, if you look at something close up to the screen, it's very clear and very detailed, but the background will be kind of out of focus. It'll be kind of blurred because your eyes are focusing on what's right in front of you, and vice versa. If you're looking at something far off in the distance, stuff in the foreground very close to you will kind of blur up. I'm sure many of you watching this video actually know all this already, but I'm just saying it just for the sake of it, just in case someone doesn't. So I personally like depth of field. Some people like the entire thing to be clear, but it's very contextual, so that's why I like to keep it on. Shadow quality, option ranges from very low to very high. That's self-explanatory. It's all going to be the quality and resolution of your shadow textures. Dynamic shadows on or off. It's basically going to, when you walk by a shadow, or not by a shadow, when you walk by a light source, will the shadow move with you relative to where you are and the light source is, or will it just be a kind of static thing? Will it move slightly based on, a bulb flickering, or will it move slightly based on the flame on a candle, kind of wavering in the wind? So shadow cache on off. When it's set to on, shadows for static objects will be cached in video memory. So basically it will make shadows quicker to load and easier to load essentially, but because it will be cached in video memory, you do need additional video memory on your graphics card. So I mean, if you're pushing the top end of your graphics card's video limit as it is, before you turn this on, you may have problems. Personally, like I have a GTX 1080 Founders Edition, 8GB GDDR5 in here, so I'm assuming I'll be able to turn that on and completely max out the graphical settings. I could be wrong for shadow cache. Some places define shadow cache as just using basic generic shadows to have ready for everything. It varies on game to game sometimes. Ambient occlusion. Selectable options include off, SSAO variable, SSAO, and HBAO+. Note that HBAO+ is an NVIDIA specific feature, which I'm sure we already know as it is. So ambient occlusion is basically the gradient of shadows as we go, and like when you look towards a corner, like the corner of a room, the shadows they start off pretty light and pretty soft, and then they get harder and harder and deeper as you get into the corner. So that's basically how that works. SSAO is screen saving or saver. I can't remember which one it is. Screen something ambient occlusion. It's basically the easier version of it. It's still pretty good, but it's not the best version of it. I don't know how it's going to work in this case because they have two settings for SSAO and SSAO variable. So I don't know if that will change the resolution for it as required or whatever it is. But there's SSAO, SSAO variable, and HBAO plus, which is horizon based ambient occlusion plus. Usually this is an excellent top quality setting when put into games. So I'm expecting to use this one. I'm expecting to be the best option there is. You do require, as it says, an NVIDIA card for it because it is an NVIDIA specific feature that they created and that they came up with. Next up, bloom effect on off toggle. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Bloom is basically when you're looking at, say, light or a bright surface or a surface that light is highly reflecting off, that it will be, like when you look at a white tile that's directly in the sunlight, it's very hard to look at because it looks like it's very luminous. So it's basically that. But again, I'm sure most people already know this kind of stuff. Lens flare on or off. If you like your J.J. Abrams films, you're going to have a lens flare turned on. But thankfully, unlike J.J. Abrams films, most games use lens flare properly. So that lens flare is basically when you're looking directly at an oncoming light source rather than just lens flaring from, stuff that there's no light source on screen. Again, like a J.J. Abrams film. Volumetric lighting quality, selectable between off, low, and high. This option controls the intensity and quality of dynamic lighting, including light shafts piercing through window panes and vents. So, I mean, the description I just read there of volumetric lighting quality in Resident Evil 7, it's pretty much self-explanatory. I don't need to go into too much detail on it there. As it says, it controls the intensity and quality of lights coming through, say, like if you've played the demo at all, you'd be walking down and there's cracked window panes and cracked shutters and there's light bleeding in through it, and it will have whatever you want to call them, light shafts or god rays. It will have them coming in. Obviously, the better setting you use for this, the higher quality and quantity will be of these types of lighting effects. We're almost done. There's only 4 more options. Don't worry, guys. We're almost finished. Reflections, selectable between on, off, and variable. Adjusts fidelity and quality of screen space reflections. This one I'm not sure about, for the simple reason is, obviously, turning reflections on makes perfect sense. Turning reflections off is equally self-explanatory. Variable reflections is something I'm not 100% sure of. Is it going to adjust the quality of the reflection based on the graphical need of the particular scene at the time? I don't know. I'm going to hopefully find out a bit more about it when the actual demo comes out, or maybe, before the actual game comes out, but after the demo. Personally, I'm going for top quality settings the entire way, and I think on would be the best option for this. Don't quote me on that. We'll see when the demo comes out on the 19th. But yeah, it's the quality of reflections. It'll basically be the resolution and possibly even refresh rate of the reflections. Now, where am I? Three more options here. Subsurface scattering on or off toggle. That's a technology and a technique commonly used very recently, actually. It shows how light dissipates on skin of character models. So it's typically used for showing how light and shadow and will probably be distributed over skin. And of course, that will affect the level of detail, the visible level of detail at any particular time. Chromatic aberration. Personally, I like to turn this off because it's that effect that gives it the kind of old filmic look, which I don't usually find to be a problem. But in almost all the games I've played with chromatic aberration on lately, it's always been kind of off. I've never liked it. Black Ops 3 used it. Black Ops 3 used it very intensely, actually. What other games used it? Call of Duty Infinite Warfare used it to a slightly lesser degree. And Alien Isolation is another game that heavily uses it. Personally, I think it fit very well in Alien Isolation. But in games that look really high-tech and modern, it's not so much in place. Now, because of the aesthetic and the setting of Resident Evil 7, maybe it will work. I mean, I've played the Resident Evil 7 demo several times at this point, so we'll see how it goes when I play it on PC with the setting on, and then try it with the setting off. And then color space, selectable between sRGB and BT.709. So basically, it's two of the types of color spectrums. So it all depends on your monitor and preference, really. So that's basically it. That took way longer than expected to go through the entire team. Like I said, the demo is out on Xbox One on the 9th of December, I believe, and the PC is going to be out on the 19th. So come the 19th and for the next few days onwards, expect to see some nice top quality PC Resident Evil 7 footage on this channel when I start using that for videos and maybe even do a quick little playthrough. I've already got the absolute best ending. There's 4 endings in the Resident Evil Midnight demo. I've got all 4 of them on the PlayStation. I'm going to have to get all 4 of them again, including the very secret coin ending on the PC as well, because it does let you save the game and carry something over to the main game, and obviously I'm going to be getting it on PC, so yeah, you get the idea. So let me know, how is your computer ready for Resident Evil 7? Are you happy with the kind of options that they've included in it? Are you unhappy with them? Is there something else you'd prefer to see in there, or what the deal is? Let me know all that anyway in the comments section below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You can follow me on Twitter, details in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the rest of the videos in my channel.